Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days across the United States for today's second video. So yes, every Wednesday we have a look at the weather for the next week or two across the USA. And we'll extend out beyond that with the CFSV2 for the next 4 weeks as well. Will take us to the end of December. And I shall get on with that for you very shortly, just to say that the first video released today was for the UK and for Europe, looking at November month-end forecast. I'm going to be live streaming from 6 o'clock tonight. We're going to have our Wednesday evening live stream. We'll live stream 10 to 14 day update within that live stream. We'll be taking questions and we'll be here for an hour. It's going to be absolutely great. So I'll see you all live at 6 o'clock, hopefully. These USA forecasts are YouTube exclusives, so if you want to be notified when we are releasing these every Wednesday, you will need to subscribe to the YouTube channel and click all notifications, and then YouTube will tell you when we are releasing USA forecasts. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. Right, so here we go, then. I'm going to start with the situation in terms of what is now Tropical Storm ETA. So this was a Category 4 hurricane as it moved on to the coast of Central America yesterday. It is inland now, and it has weakened very, very dramatically as it's lost its energy, moving away from the ocean. And so now it is giving, it's a tropical storm, and it's giving maximum sustained winds of 70 miles per hour with a minimum set pressure of 990 millibars, and it's moving westwards at 8 miles per hour. Maximum sustained at 70 miles an hour, so still a very significant storm indeed, producing very, very severe weather and copious amounts of rain indeed. You see it just there through to Friday evening. Heavy rainfall from ETA will lead to catastrophic, life-threatening flash flooding across portions of Central America. So it's still very significant, although it has weakened from a Category 4 hurricane to tropical storm. Still very, very significant. So if we click on this, warnings and cone images, you can see that this is on its way up to America, potentially, early next week. So the current position of Tropical Storm ETA, or ETA, is just there, going to become a post-tropical depression over Guatemala by Friday, but it's going to curve back out into the Caribbean. Look at this, it moves back out into the Caribbean. That sort of starts to provide more energy, begins to power up back up to a tropical storm, heads up to Cuba by Sunday, and then it's moving into Florida as we go into the beginning of next week. Tropical Storm ETA, or ETA, moving into Florida early next week. Now, there is not a suggestion yet that this will power back up to a hurricane, but there is a lot of warm water that this is going to pass over, you know, as it curves back out from Central America into here, then up to here, then up to here. So it could power back up to a hurricane, this. I wouldn't rule it out. At the moment, it looks like it's going to hit Florida as a tropical storm. But I think we need to wait and see on that, because we have, you know, we did see a very dramatic powering up of this storm as it moved towards Central America a couple of days ago. It was only forecast to be a Category 1 hurricane as it got to like Honduras and those sort of areas, but it powered actually up to Category 4 very quickly and very unexpectedly. So these things can sort of develop much more than is expected and is anticipated, and we may see something like that happening once again. This is the latest Windflow Map from earthnullschool.net. So if we pull this around and zoom in, we'll be able to see the current position of this, what is now a tropical storm, but yesterday was a Category 4 hurricane. There it is, looking nowhere near as powerful as it did yesterday, but still a very significant feature. This is going to move in that sort of direction, and this is the vast expanse of water it's going to pass over as it moves up towards Cuba through the second half of this week and into the weekend, and this all warm water that could provide more energy to power this thing up. So I don't think this is done with yet, this storm, and and there may be some impacts from this for Southern America. So how the GFS is looking in terms of the forecast for Hurricane ETA over the next couple of days. So the current position is just here across southern parts of America. Let's run through and see what's being predicted to happen. So there it is. It moves back over the sea as we go through to like the weekend. We're heading up towards Cuba. Then it is deepening as it does so, and then it moves up towards Florida. 994 millibars as it's heading up towards Florida. So a significant area of low pressure, but it could get more powerful than that. When it starts to move back into the Gulf of Mexico. So of course that's warm water again, and that could provide more sort of power, more energy to this thing. So we're up to Friday next week, Friday 13th of November, and it's still sort of there in the Gulf of Mexico. That is still what is currently Tropical Storm ETA was yesterday, category 4 Hurricane ETA, and it's still there in the Gulf of Mexico even at the end of next week. So this is a very, very long-lasting storm indeed, and all the time it's over those warm waters of the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, it could power up even more. By the 15th of November, it's moving in towards like southeastern America, so like the Carolinas, for example, moving into that sort of area, and then finally it's moving out into the North Atlantic just as an area of low pressure off Newfoundland. In the wake of that, there's not a huge amount going on, but there is another storm just here, another area of low pressure, I suppose I should say. So let's just very quickly go back and see what else happens. So yeah, there is something else. So there's this area of low pressure just here over sort of Mexico, just there. That's like on Friday the 13th of November next week. There is another system that the GFS is trying to develop just here, like in the middle of the tropical Atlantic, and it doesn't really do a great deal with that, but of course because of how big this season has been, and although this will be like the 20th of November, so very, very late on in the season, but because of how busy and how big this hurricane season has been, it is now officially a hyperactive hurricane season for ACE, by the way, accumulated cyclone energy. So because of that, any sort of disturbance areas all the way up to the end of November, possibly even into December this year, might produce a very, very late sort of late developing hurricane or tropical storm. The season is coming to an end now, whichever way we look at it. But because it's been such an active season, it is possible there could be further developments all the way into December. In 2005, we had, I think, our most active season on record. Or second most active. No, I think 2005 was the most active season on record, and that had like a late hurricane in December that year. So yeah, we might get something even into December this time. I'll have to wait and see. Looking more widely at America, these are the 500 millibar height knowledge flow charts for the next week, 10 days, with the ECMWF on the left and the GFS over on the right. So this is an area in the atmosphere, it's like the troposphere. High pressure and low pressure have been moved around by the jet stream. Red extrapolates to high pressure, blue to low pressure. So you can see that with the ECM, we've got this deep trough of low pressure digging into the north and the northwest and these are a 7 to 10 day time frame, by the way, which will take us to around the middle of November, takes us around 14th of November. So with the GFS, with the ECM I should say, we've got this deep trough digging into the north and northwest of America with a ridge over on the eastern side. So the flow and the jet are going to be doing something a little bit like that. It means that it's northern, western and northwestern areas that are turning colder with this trough of low pressure. Over on the eastern side, probably going to be mild or even very mild, maybe even quite warm, pulling up winds like from a southerly type direction with this ridge sitting just off the east coast. So like the Midwest and the east is likely to be very mild, but out to the west and to the northwest there is likely to be significantly colder, that trough of low pressure. The GFS is virtually identical, really. Again, digging down this trough of low pressure into the north and the northwest with a ridge off the eastern side. Jet stream and flow going something like that. So again, you would expect the coldest weather to be in the north and the northwest, but warmest weather to be over on the eastern side. These were GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. So look at Washington DC today. All attention going to be on Washington DC, of course, over the coming hours. So the red line is a 30-year upper air temperature average for the capital of America, and you can see it's going to be very warm, very mild, even warm, you would say there, with the upper air temperatures anyway over the next week, significantly above average. As we go into the second half of November, it's extended range, we see the upper air temperatures beginning to slide, but even then, probably still just about, most of these ensembles anyway, just about staying on the milder and average side. A lot of dry weather to come as well for this eastern part of America, so yeah, plenty of dry weather for like the next week, maybe next 10 days. Very mild and dry under an area of high pressure. And then it starts to turn more unsettled. So that deep trough of low pressure we saw in the north and in the northwest on the 500 millibar height flow chart, from after sort of day 10, then that trough of low pressure begins to progress eastwards through the Midwest and over to the eastern side, and that brings much more in way of precipitation and possibly then starts to lower the temperature. But certainly in the next week, possibly the next 10 days, it's looking mostly dry and mild for the East America. We see this on the temperature anomaly chart. So these are temperature anomalies from the 4th through to the 12th of November. So, you know, really from like Colorado all the way over to the East Coast, it's generally looking significantly mild on average, particularly warm, actually. You know, I say warm rather than mild, particularly warm up towards the Great Lakes, so through the Midwest, and then over towards the East and the Northeast. Very, very mild through there, or warm. Out to west of the Northwest, it's quite a lot cooler, and I would expect to see things getting colder with these anomaly charts for the Northwest and the West generally in the coming days. Precipitation anomalies from the 4th to the 12th of November looking pretty dry, very southern and eastern states, away from Florida, anyway, where it does look very wet. That's down to Tropical Storm ETA, of course, or ETA. But generally, it's dry on average for many northern and eastern, southeastern parts of America. It looks more unsettled up to the northwest. This looks like it could be a particularly snowy area just here, moving up towards the Canadian border. So yeah, the precipitation only significantly above average there. We know the trough of low pressure is digging in with a jet stream from Canada up in the northwest, so this area, a lot of the precipitation could well be significant and heavy snow. Right, so this is how the GFS is currently looking, men. So we have high pressure sitting over and to the east of America, drawing up these very mild southerly winds. Most parts of the states are mild, actually, at the moment. Into tomorrow, with the upper air temperatures anyway, into tomorrow, again, high pressure is dominating across many parts of America, bringing lots of dry weather. That continues into Friday as well. Look at the upper air temperatures for the end of the week. Very, very mild upper air temperatures through most parts of America. The northwest is cooler, but generally these upper air temperatures are significantly above average for early November, particularly so again through like that area just there over towards the west of the Midwest, I suppose. Now into the weekend, then we start to get this area of low pressure beginning to develop out to the northwest. So it takes a little while, but as we go for the weekend to the early part of next week, it probably starts to turn more unsettled and cooler in the north and in the northwest, or colder in the north and the northwest. At the same time, these midwestern and eastern states are still under this ridge that's pulling up the winds from a southerly direction. So there we are. We're still bringing up those very, very mild upper air temperatures through much of the Midwest and over to the east, but out to the northwest it is getting colder. Cold air is digging in from Canada, especially through that area just there. Early next week we begin to look like that. We don't see the hurricane all that well on or the tropical storm all that well on these charts. So we know we have got this heading towards Florida, but it doesn't look overly dramatic really. With the GFS 6Z anyway. This is by the middle of next week, so by then the ridge is just sitting a little bit further eastwards out into the Atlantic, still drawing up very mild air on the eastern side of America though. At the same time, more unsettled out to the northwest, with this area of low pressure bringing probably outbreaks of snow to these northern states as the cold air again digging in from Canada into the far north and northwest. This area of low pressure just here is trying to bring something more unsettled and colder down in towards the Great Lakes and the Midwest. Up to day 10 with the GFS, that's how we're looking. Again, it's all looking rather messy, really. Messy upper air temperatures showing that the north does have some poles of colder air, but actually at this point, the colder air is probably receding back into Canada. Still looks very mild or warm for many of these eastern and southeastern parts of America. The cold air never really gets through there, or the colder air never really gets through to the east of America. Otherwise, you know, sort of near normal temperatures, probably for the central states. Coldest weather is in the far north. Moving up to the end of the GFS run, so that's how we finish up. Still with a ridge of high pressure dominating across much of the east, so this could be a very mild and dry first half to November over on the eastern side. Always colder and more unsettled in the northwest. That's how the upper air temperatures look. So generally, you know, really quite mild or potentially very mild across many parts of the states, even up to the end of this GFS run, which is the 20th of November. And the coldest force a long way north was back in central Canada as well, you'll notice. So even like southern Canada, significantly milder than average for the time of the year. This is how the ECM is looking, very similar at the moment. So again, the mildest or warmest weather is over on the eastern side. Really, we head up into the weekend. So we're looking, so it's turning more unsettled across the west and the northwest. Very hot, a surge of heat pushing through these sort of Rocky Mountain states. So surge of heat pushing through through Rockies. Quite cool over towards the Pacific side of America. And then over on the east side of the states, again, just very mild or quite warm with that ridge of high pressure. Low pressure increasingly starts to pull down colder air from Canada into these northern and sort of Rocky Mountain states. So again, we see that the warmth is being shunted over towards the Midwest and the East America as cold air, this trough of low pressure, moves down from the north. And a big temperature contrast there could fuel a lot of heavy rain, and for the northwestern states, quite a lot of heavy snow is possible there. Now, the ECM does show up the tropical storm and or hurricane much better than the GFS. There it is in the Gulf of Mexico, for example, on Wednesday. That's the position of it on Tuesday. So ECM, the Euro never quite gets it to Florida, actually, I don't think. It just gives like a glancing blow to Florida. That's Monday with the tropical storm or hurricane over Cuba. That's where it is on Tuesday. Again, it's just sort of glanced the south and southwest of Florida and is moving back into the Gulf of Mexico at that point, where it looks like the Euro wants to power it up. Look how the isobars get more tightly packed through to Wednesday in the Gulf of Mexico. So that's probably powering back up to a hurricane once again. But GFS never really showed much, did it? So there's uncertainty about what's going to happen with this storm next week. That's Thursday, and look at this. It's pushing onto the southeastern coast, southeastern Gulf Coast, as what looks like a very significant tropical storm, probably hurricane, moving on to that southeastern coast, Gulf Coast. Further northwards, we've still got very mild air pushing up the east side of America. That goes on colder out to the north and to the northwest. And then as you head up towards day 10, that's how we look again. Quite messy at day 10. Upper air temperatures show that it has cooled down across many of these northern and northeastern states, but it's still milder than average, really, for the middle of November. And up this eastern side, it still looks very mild and or warm, actually, up to that point. Finally, the CFS V2, these are 500 millibar heights, breaking down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from the 3rd to the 9th of November. The coming week has the ridge through the Midwest to the east and a trough digging down through here with a ridge, of course, towards the Pacific Northwest. And so the flow jet does something like that. It means that for eastern states, it's going to be very mild and or warm, coolest in the northwest. Week 2 is the 10th through to the 16th of November. Again, we've got the ridge over on the east side. The trough is out to the west. So the flow jet doing something a little bit like that brings the coldest air in towards the west. Most settled conditions there too. We will see those cooler, more unsettled conditions trying to progress eastwards, but the east could well stay very, very warm up to this point. Week 3 is 17th, 23rd of November. Again, still this ridge in the east, still the trough out to the west. So still many of those Midwest and Eastern states anyway, probably drawing up wind from the south, which will be a mild direction. That goes on into week 4 as well. 24th to 30th of November. Again, lots of ridging over on the eastern side, which probably again draws up some warmth through the eastern part of America. Trough of low pressure is just there along with the jet stream. Let's have a look at temperature anomalies. So for week 1, most parts of the states very substantially above average. This is the 3rd to the 9th of November, looking very mild and or warm, really, from the west coast right the way through to the east coast. So let's see what's happened there. So let's try and get rid of that and get rid of that as well. Sorry about that, everybody. There we go, I want to get rid of that as well. Right, so we go through to week 2, which is going to be the 10th to the 16th of November. Looking, again, very warm on the eastern side of America, but much colder in the north and in the northwest. So like from the west coast over towards, almost in towards the Midwest, but not perhaps just a little bit west of the Midwest. But generally just through here, it is very significantly below average. Back to a lot of warm weather in week 3 to the 17th, 23rd of November, particularly for the central and eastern states once more. And week 4 also looking very substantially above average, 24th, 30th of November. Again, very mild through most parts of America there. This will be a really mild November, especially so for the east, if this forecast is correct. Rainfall-wise, so week 1, 3rd to the 9th of November, is wettest in the northwest, driest through the Midwest and into the east. Does look very wet down towards Florida in that area. Of course, that's all tropical storm and or hurricane related. Week 2 is the 10th to 16th of November. Again, pretty dry in the east and the southeast, more unsettled perhaps through these central and western states. Week 4, generally a bit more unsettled in this week across many parts of America. The south does look relatively dry down towards the Gulf Coast. And then week 4, I should say, that's week 3, week 4, 24th to 30th of November. Again, just looks quite a bit more unsettled, really, through most parts of America. Then. So that's settling. A very mild November could be on the way, particularly for eastern parts of America. Always a little bit colder in the north and in the northwest. And obviously, again, as I said, because of how active this season's been with hurricanes and tropical storms, we do need to be watching out for further developments through the course of November through like the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, and potentially tropical Atlantic as well. Right, so if you enjoy this USA forecast, please give us a like. Let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure you are subscribed to the GWV YouTube channel. And that's absolutely fantastic. We have another USA forecast for you next Wednesday. We're going to be back later on with the live stream for 10 to 14 day updates, so come back for that then. And I'll see you all live from 6 o'clock for USA forecast. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching.